All right. So to begin the interview, I created a little video to describe my unschooling parent style with you all. Thank you, children, for helping me create this totally accurate. This is not meant to be humorous at all. This is completely, totally encompassing of what I believe I am as a parent in one 60-second YouTube short.
So, what's your parenting philosophy?
My parenting what? Hey, kids!
What is your parenting approach?
Kids don't need parents. Put on your clothes. We're going to your aunt's wedding.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
Sometimes my dad tries to get me to read books.
So what are your responsibilities?
Today, I tried to cook an egg for myself.
I just let them do whatever they want.
Have you found that has worked out for you?
So far, it's going great. Can't do that in real time when you're in person. All right. Well, before we begin, raise your cup, your mug, your chalice, your glass. If you have a beverage, fill it with your favorite liquid and join us in the actual or pretend simultaneous sip. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. If this is your first time to a meetup, we do that at every meetup. Okay. So obviously that was a little bit of sarcasm. But when we ran into the concept of unschooling, and we started using this term, some people think that that's what that is. If you actually want to find out what unschooling is, watch this interview the kids did with Dan last week. I basically decided that he understands unschooling better than anybody I've met. And he blogs about it and he talks about it, and it's amazing. So that's kind of what I think unschooling is. The kids also did a talk yesterday. Was it just yesterday? On on Isla led this, and tiger parenting versus unschooling, as well as some other parenting philosophies. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. A little nervous, but all right, go ahead, Isla. Take it away.
What does like a day of parenting look like from your perspective?
Okay. I think so I created a chart actually to try to help showcase some of this. I'm an unschooling parent now, but I wasn't. So when the kids were less mature, then I'd say I was more of the tiger parent, and I can talk about what that means. So kind of the way that my strategy on parenting changed over time. I started out having a much higher conviction view of what I thought my kids should be doing. But then over time, basically by the time they were both 10, they had reached that point where I was basically at the end of this big green arrow. And so now I don't really feel like I'm parenting anymore. I just feel like I'm hanging out and we're just doing stuff and having fun. And so yesterday, Isla was trying to get me to read one of her projects she's going to present today. And I didn't read it ahead of time. Sorry, Isla. I should have. That's,
You'll listen to the presentation today, though.
Yeah. So I spent about an hour a week, really engaged with my kids, finding out what they've been doing for school. And I do that on Friday at 11. And so that's what I've been that's when I find out what they've been doing all week. But it wasn't like that before. It's just a recent thing. I spent a lot of time on the phone talking to entrepreneurs. A lot of time walking around talking to entrepreneurs, mostly passion-driven entrepreneurs in the ed tech space. So I would say I work full time, although I don't work a 9 to 5. And then I spend a lot of time with my wife and kids, but usually in relation to shared interests. A lot of it might be the app or the school, and we play basketball. We make silly videos.
like that one.
We talk about podcasts. Yeah, I mean, I basically we just talk like we're friends. We have a lot of shared interests. We're like very interested in education, technology, some of these sports. We play hacky sack. We like to go hiking. We like meeting really, really interesting, awesome, cool parents like all of you guys. I like meeting new people. I meet lots of new people. So yeah, that's kind of like me in a day. Danica, how are you? I messaged your dad. I was hoping you'd come. Feel free to ask questions, everybody.
Oh, Remy and Mia had their hand up.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Do you guys have a question or no? All right.
I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun learning about Kai. And while we were editing this interview together, it was really fun, Kai, getting to know you a little bit. And the way that your dad approaches things. So I don't know, given that you have one dad, right? And you've had one life experience like all of us, kind of going through this journey. So maybe some of the things that your dad does, kind of wondering, well, do all dads do that? Maybe not. So like if you have questions in that regard, feel free to jump in. What were some of the questions that you guys asked Dan last week? You could start there.
Oh, the really hard one. What's something that you believe a point of view that you hold that most other people disagree with?
Okay, I know the answer to that one. I've got a bunch. One is that I think that certainly with adults, I don't think this is true for kids that are like under 10. You notice that kids that are under 10 tend to just play with whomever and get to know people, and they can have fun. They'll focus on shared interests really as a driving force behind who they want to engage with, right? But then after that, I think is the beginning of when human beings make a mistake of starting to identify people based on labels that I think are, I'd say the where I disagree with a lot of adults is that I tend to think that these labels, whether they're religious or political or homeschooling ideology, that these do an incredibly poor job of describing what we actually think and feel. And I think that that's much better demonstrated through the actions that we take and how we live our lives, because these concepts are so abstract that we talk past each other and fail to learn and grow from each other based on perceived differences that aren't actually all that big of a deal. So that's what I think. So that's one reason why I work so hard to talk to people from many different walks of life. And striving very, very hard to find other adults, especially because I think that they help raise kids that are more open-minded, critical thinking, and don't just label and judge people, but try to learn from different kinds of people. Yeah, that would be the big one. Good question. Always a good question. Hey, Sume, do you want to lead this interview process, like call on people?
Sure, yeah, okay. Dan or Kai, go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question for John.
Joe.
No.
You can call me John. You can call me whatever,
Okay.
frankly.
How do you guys play video games with your kids, and what computer hardware do you use to make it happen?
Nice. Okay, so I spent a lot of time playing video games as a kid, and I realized one time while playing Diablo 2, which basically involves just clicking on bad guys nonstop for hours on end, that I had done nothing but click my mouse for 4 hours straight.
My God.
For like 2 years prior every day. So something clicked in me that made me realize that I had better things I wanted to do with my life. So I started getting rather particular about games, but there are two that we've played a lot of. One is Civilization 6. It's basically like an extremely complex board game where you're taking civilizations from 4000 BC up to modern day and then launching a spaceship into Mars or to Mars. And I find this game to be an incredibly useful tool for teaching my kids all kinds of very valuable things, from geopolitics and geography. Will often play on the Earth map different civilizations, the technology tree that humanity's followed, urban planning, strategy. So there's that. And then when we play Minecraft, we've enjoyed playing a lot of Minecraft, but we tend to do like group games. And then also, as my kids will attest, it often felt like work because this is also how I was teaching them programming. So like they would develop these very intricate scenarios, journeys, birthday games that we set up with some of their friends where they built a coliseum using these JavaScripts, and then would change the effects of the characters so they could run really fast, and then they would like have races around a coliseum that they made. And so so those are like the two main games. I mean, we're open to other games, but like I like games that are also helpful in terms of relationship building, learning new skills, stuff
So
like that.
both of those can be run on either a desktop or a laptop, and then Civilization is on Steam.
Thank you for actually answering this question, Isla. Good job. How sweet. Go ahead, Sume.
All right, Elizabeth, you can share your question.
All right, I'm not a kid, but and my kids are gone, the ones that are kids. But I have a question. Do you feel like you have had to, or have you done work on kind of thinking differently about what your kids are doing as far as assessing whether you think that what they're doing is productive for them or useful for them? And do you have any thoughts on like what if your kids was doing something that you just couldn't see a lot of value in? How do you handle that?
Oh yeah, that's a really, really good question. I mean, these are all really good questions, but I feel like that one's pressing for a lot of parents that are interested in terms like unschooling. So I think one thing that's a little different for me compared to other parents that have kids that homeschool, perhaps, is just that I've worked at a lot of different places. So I have a broader experience in terms of seeing the types of jobs and professional environments that they could be in. So I felt like that was useful. I think it's one reason why I'll try to focus on at least younger. Like I don't really, they just kind of do their thing now. And I feel like what they're doing is quite valuable. It doesn't come close to the line, so I'm not concerned now. But like a lot of public speaking, writing, and coding, that was key. Like and math. I consider all four of those to basically be communication. So if they're really, really good at communicating and creating, then I feel like they're going to be fine solving, like knowing how to solve problems. So they'd come up to me with a problem and I'd be like, well, I don't know. How are you going to solve this problem? So there's like a small list of things that I feel like if kids know those things, then they're going to be fine. Knowing how to think critically and problem solve, public speaking, writing, coding, math just being the language of logic. So I taught my kids the importance of going to the bathroom before road trips by using math. I made a model of their probability of needing to go pee based on inputs that we gathered data for, and you know, it was quite useful. So like they're like, oh, that's math. Like I didn't know that until college. I thought math was the place you go to be miserable, to drill problems and stuff. So that was it. Like collaboration, yeah, most definitely. A lot of C words: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity, also confidence. If they're doing lots of things, if they're actually accomplishing things and helping people, then they become quite confident very fast. So that's it. Like I feel like that's it. I don't think that these really, really long, complex, you know, oh, you need this AP biology class. It's critical because it'll give you college credit. You know, it's like, this is not, you don't need to ruin your relationship with your child by doing that. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
well, I guess what you told me, you know, you didn't really answer my question. What you told me though was what you do value. But my question is, what if your kids did not value those things and were not interested? So like speaking from my experience, I would say none of my kids are interested in the least in public speaking. One has done some plays and a couple of things at church. Math has been so-so, but they've been able to do what they needed to do, like my older two. have been out of school. And that is something that in our family, like we're okay with, where I'm something that's talked about a lot in unschooling is the just-in-time learning versus just-in-case learning. But anyway, so that's kind of what I wanted to hear. So like, this is what you super value. This is what you think it is important for your kids. But what if your kids like really did not want to do public speaking? What would you do for that?
Okay, and then we'll let's go to the. So I did promise this being a kids interview, although I do love the parent interview. We should totally do that. That'll be sweet. When my kids were younger, you know, before they hit that kind of that arrow peak, I made them do things. I made them write. Isla, when she was 2.5 years old, she was at a Montessori school with her big sister. They had a talent show, and I was like, you guys are going to go up there and perform something. What do you want to perform? And she sang Do Re Mi, and it was beautiful. Da, a deer, a female deer, like just like, and I said, okay, well, once you hit like 50 performances, you won't have any trouble public speaking. By the time they had done like 20, they were good. Go ahead, Sima, take it away. You're doing great.
Yeah. Remy and Mia, do you guys have a question? Oh,
Yeah, what fun things do you guys do with the kids when you like are in church or something?
Okay, and the connection was a bit bad, but I think I heard it. What
Like-
kinds of fun things do you like doing with kids? I like doing whatever kids like doing because basically kids know how to have fun. So I'll go to whether it's parties, whether it's when we went on a cruise with a, you know, like wherever I go. And sometimes it's frustrating to some of my neighbor friends because they'll sit down with me and be like, hey, Joe, how's the house? And I'll be like, hey, to your kid, hey, what do you want to talk about? Like, and then we'll talk about whatever they want to talk about, do whatever they want to do, play lots of silly games.
We invented a game called Disturb Grandpa.
We invented a game called Disturb Grandpa at at Independence Day, for example. Like all the adults are sitting around doing their adult thing, and I'm playing Disturbed Grandpa with all the kids, which basically is the same as like the zombie apocalypse movie where you start with one disturbed grandpa.
it's infection, but you act like a disturbed grandpa.
It was great. I felt like I did a really good job of helping them learn acting skills from that. I play a very good disturbed grandpa. All right, keep going, Sima. You're doing great.
All right. Do you guys have another question? You might want to put it in the chat because I think the
Priyanka,
connection
I saw
was a bit
Priyanka and Adi.
bad. Oh yeah, Audie, go ahead.
Like, can I go after one more someone?
Sure.
All right. I don't know if we have another question. I think Remy and me are putting theirs in the chat.
Okay, let me see.
What makes
a
good disturbed grandpa?
So I think that the broader question is like, what makes for really good acting? I think that acting is another one of these skills it's really useful. Trying to really act like somebody else, like in your own households, don't do this unless you're really mentally prepared to do it. But Kai, Dan, imagine if you pretended for a second that your brains were transported into each other's bodies, but without any warning. You just all of a sudden are inside the other person's body and then act that out. Yeah, do that. It's fun. So to try to really empathize with another person, to think from another person's perspective, doing a lot of personality type, like learning about different personality types, communication styles, love languages, very useful. And if you do a lot of this kind of, how do I really feel from another person's perspective, then you can get really good at acting. You know, I mean, I don't know. I do you want me to act out Disturbed Grandpa right now? I mean, maybe we'll say that we'll do an outtake later on. Go ahead, Adi. Come on, go for it, man.
Yeah, so my question is, does anything frustrate you while parenting?
Not really now. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but I mean, there were some times. So very early on, the biggest thing that frustrated me with kids sometimes is that they would be disrespectful to either their parents or their peers or to their siblings. Like there were certain hardline rules, but it was like a very tiny list of things that basically meant that you're doing something that's breaking the only rule we have, which is to have fun. Like if you're being mean to somebody, if you're being disrespectful to somebody, that's not fun. You're breaking the fun rule. So I would be really, really hard on my kids when they broke the fun rule. There was no 1, 2, 3. If kids broke that rule at a birthday party, they got one warning, but that warning was when they first showed up. I was just like, hey, don't be mean to people, be respectful, be kind. And if they broke that rule, you know, then I would give, unless it was a flagrant foul. If it was a flagrant foul, I'd just be like, I'm calling your parents. You got to go. Kids know that. That happened a few times. And I talked to the parents about it. We'd sit down and be like, here's what happened. You know, no big deal. Freedom to fail. You know, everybody should have freedom to fail. They can come back next time, you know. But I just, yeah, if people are just mean to other people, that really gets my goat. Parents or kids. Okay, maybe we can take one more and then we can break out in the breakout groups. It's getting a little long. Anything? Come on, Danica. Come on, Danica. Nothing?
How competitive are you with your kids?
No, she has to ask. This is a kid's interview.
Well, our examples, we went whitewater rafting. Then they stopped to do a cliff dive. And I was like, oh, you're gonna have to do it. And she goes out, walks out and does it. And like, now I have to do it. And I was like, scared on my mind, but I jumped in.
Okay, competitive. So I'd say they're competitive, but like how one channels competition is different. So I spent a lot of time talking to Isla, basically as soon as she could talk, about how she was going to, as a younger sibling, run into the challenge of having an older sibling that was because, you know, on a percentage basis.
If I could jump in and clarify Colin's question.
Oh.
Were you asking whether or not Isla and I are competitive or whether Dad is competitive with us?
I don't know. I don't know what you were meaning.
I meant like, so when she does something, I have to, even though I probably shouldn't do it, I have to do it. Like I'm very competitive with her, right? So it's a challenge. So I challenge her thinking that she's going to back out. So I don't have to do it. But then
So
of course it works. Off. Yeah, exactly.
You show off.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I kind of think so. One thing is like the word wequil kind of stemmed from this east-west equilibrium idea where I realized that I married my opposite in like everything. So that's hard sometimes because the things that I'm good at are really hard for her and the things that she's good at are really hard for me. And so we don't try to compete on really anything, because if we did, it would just be one person completely crushing the other one on whatever it was. And then I think a similar kind of thing with Sume and Isla. Their personality types are also opposites but orthogonal to Mom and I. So when they're just they do a lot of learning from each other. Like Sume has been helping Isla a lot with like Notion, organizational skills, like all kinds of, and then Isla getting Sume out of her shell, be more outgoing. Here, let's be spontaneous. This is fun. That's fun. Try new things. So there's a lot of that cross pollination. But I don't know, maybe if we did more competitive sports, but we play basketball. That's fun. But I'm not like, oh my God, they beat me and like crying in the, I don't know. I don't know. If they beat me, I feel good. You know, that's like a typical parent thing, right? Just like we kind of want our kids to crush us. Anyway, that's my answer. But well, this is cool. So I'm super psyched about continuing these. If you haven't had a chance to watch the interview with Dan, I we want to take some time to really take these, edit them down a bit, make them really fun, use it as a way for us to get to know each other. I love this. You guys should try it. Now that I've gone through it, I can say it's fun.